Hi classmates, my name is Maricruz and I'm going to talk about surrealism and specifically about Miro and Dali's work. So, first we have the topic outlined and first I'll be talking about the introduction and then we'll be talking about Joan Miro, a little introduction about him and also some of his artworks. Then we're going to see Salvador Dali and also some of his art and painting. And at the end, we'll have a conclusion of the topic. Okay, so first we have the introduction of the topic. Between the World Wars First and Second, Surrealist art and literature flourished as artists attempt to portray, express, or interpret the workings of the subconscious mind. Two artists in particular that are the ones that we're going to talk about the whole video are Salvador Dali and Joan Miró, that developed two approaches to surrealism. Miró was considered to be the purist approach by the Surrealists, and Surrealism was an art movement created in 1924 and it was focused in a world of dreams and the irrational things to create a new reality, a new society, and it was linked with the conscious and unconscious state of the mind, the conscious thoughts as the main part of the mind, and the unconscious that is the other part where all the bad, weird, and intrusive thoughts were hidden. And with all of this comes the war, a world with pain, anger that comes of the unconscious part of the mind. In 1924, André Breton officially founded the Surrealist movement when he wrote Le Manifeste du Surrealisme, the Surrealist Manifesto, and he established the Bureau of Surrealist Research. In it, he defined Surrealism as physic automatism in its purest stage, by which one proposes to express verbally by means of the written word or in any other manner the actual functioning of thought, dictation of thought in the absence of all control, exercised by reason outside of all aesthetic and moral preoccupation. The Surrealist group aimed to revolutionize human experience on its personal, cultural, and social and political aspects. So, first, as I said, we have Joan Miro's work. So, a little introduction about him. Joan Miró, born in 1843, and was a famous Spanish Catalan artist. He did works in sculpture, painting, and worked as a ceramist. He born in the seaport city of Barcelona, and much of his work was influenced by the scenic seaside town and the distinctive style he had found in the area. His father was a watchmaker and his mother worked as a goldsmith, which means that he was exposed to the arts and working with various forms of art from a young age in the home. Joan Miró was a Catalan painter who combined abstract art with surrealistic fantasy, and his mature style evolved from the tension between his fanciful poetic impulse and his vision of the hardness of modern life. The two main elements that Miro's work were biomorphisms, and automatism. The biomorphisms are the forms that suggest a relationship to biological or organic forms found in nature, but they do not like a realistic or naturalistic imitation of anything we might see in the real world. Then we have the automatism, which suggests that the artwork has bypassed conscious or rational thought, that the forms and images were generated by the subconscious without the artist's control. And with that, now we're going to see Art of Miro Joan. And first, the first paint that we're going to see is the Tillet Field, La Terre Labourée. During the summer of 1923, Joan Miró began painting the Tillet Field, a view of his family's farm in Montreuil, Catalonia, and also thematically related to his early quasi-realistic Faves coloral views, such as Prates, the village, and this painting is the first example of Miral's surrealist vision. The complex iconography of the field has myriad sources and attests to Miro's long-standing interest on his artist heritage. The muted, contrasting tones of the painting and recall the colors of Catalan Romanesque frescoes, while the overt flatness were most likely inspired by medieval Spanish trapezists, and the lively creatures are themselves derived from Catalan ceramics which Miró collected and kept in his studio. The stylized figure with a plough has its source in the prehistoric cave paintings of Altamira, which Miró knew very well. And even the enormous eye peering through the foliage to examples of early Christian arts, covered pink cone beneath it, can be traced to examples of also the Christian arts with many tiny eyes. Miro found something alive and magical in all things. The gigantic ears affixed to the trunk of the tree, for example, reflects his belief that every object contains a living soul. And that was the first paint. As the second paint, we have the bird of the world despite that Joan Miró said that was a sort of genesis, the amorphous beginnings of life. To make this work, Miró poured brush and flume paint on an unevenly primed canvas so that the paint soaked in some areas and rested on top in others. Atop this relatively uncontrolled application of paint, he added lines, shapes he had previously planned in the studies. The bird of kite, shooting star, balloon, and figure with white head might all seem somehow familiar, and yet their association is illogical. And describing his method, Miro said that rather than setting out to paint something, I began painting, and as I paint, the picture begins to assert itself, or suggests itself under my brush. The first stage is free, unconscious, but the second stage is carefully calculated. The beat of the world reflects this blend of spontaneity and deliberation. Now we have the second artist, that is Salvador Dali, and I'm going to give you a little introduction about him. Salvador Dali, his full name is Salvador Domingo Felipe Jacinto Dali y Domnech, Marqués of Dali of Cubo. He was a Spanish surrealist artist that renowned for his technical skill, precise draftsmanship, and the striking and bizarre images in his work. He born in Figures, Catalonia, in Spain, and received his formal education in fine arts in Madrid. He was influenced by Impressionism, Renaissance, and he was also attracted to the Cubans and avant-garde movement. He moved closer to Surrealism in the late 1920s and joined the Surrealist group in 1921, and soon he became one of its leading exponents. With his paints, he represented all types of symbolism, like his fears, his likes, and obsession. And also, he had some sexual elements that were inspired of Gala, his wife, and he also thought that the surrealism would be hand by hand by the revolution and political situation. And he also was like a king. And he even made a collaboration with Disney, and he also made an advertising that is the actual image of the chupa chips that was created by him. And now we're going to talk about the art of Dali. As, as the first paint, we have that the dream caused by the flight of a bee around pomegranate a second before awakening. Dali used symbolism extensively in his work. We can see that the elephant in the paint is a recurring image in Dali's work along with the egg and soft clocks. He connects the egg to the prenatal and intrauterine, thus using it to symbolize hope and love. We can see the sleeping figure of a woman that is actually Gala and his wife and muse that floats above a rock in a tranquil marine landscape. Beside her naked body, two drops of water. A pomegranate and a bee are also airborne. Gala's dreams prompted by the buzzing of the bee, and appears in the upper part of the canvas. There, from an exploding pomegranate shoots out a fish, from whose mouth two furious tigers emerge with a bayonet which, 1 second later, will wake Gala from her restful sleep. Although by 1944, Dali was already living in America and devoting little time to painting. This canvas marks a return to his paranoia critical method. His view, based on Freudian theories, that the images were open to multiple interpretations made him one of the leading members of the Surrealist group. Now we have his second paint. That is one of his most recognizable works. The name of this paint is The Persistence of Memory. Its liquid shapes became the trademark of Dali, and which features the image of watches that sag as if they were melting. The general interpretation of the work is that the soft watches are a reaction of the assumption that time is rigid or deterministic. This suggests Einstein's theory that time is relative and not fixed. This area is supported by other images in the work, such as the wide expanding landscape and other limb watches shown being devoured by ants. The least eccentric grandiose manner and attention-grabbing public actions sometimes drew more attention than his artwork, and to the dismay of his fellow surrealists. Dali supported capitalism and the fascist dictatorship of Francisco Franco, but cannot be said to represent a trending surrealist in this respect. And from 1949, Dalí spent his remaining years back in Spain. His acceptance and embracing of Franco's dictatorship were strongly disapproved of by other Spanish artists and intellectuals who stayed in exile. Now we'll have the conclusion of the topic. The organized Breton surrealist movement in Europe dissolved as World War II toured through Europe. Breton, Dalí, Ernst, Mason, and others left Europe for New York. It is in here that surrealists found renewal and continue to affect developments in art. Salvador Dalí has been cited as major inspiration for many modern artists, such as Damien Hirst, Noel Fielding, Jeff Koons, and most other modern surrealists. Modern Miro has been a significant influence on late 20th century art, in particular the American abstract expressionist artists. A surrealist could be all things, as long as they conform to Breton's control. Salvador Dalí was unable to do this due to his self-grandism behavior and his political beliefs and the naturalistic style and embracing of bourgeois society. And Joan Mirau's approach to surrealism can be considered purist. Mirau's automatic and biomorphic work has been interpreted as surrealism, a sandbox for the subconscious mind, a recreation of the childlike. His distance of bourgeois art and his attacks on the popularity and appropriation of art are in keeping with the surrealist ideals, and, most importantly, in a movement founded and controlled by Breton. He described Joan Miró as the most surrealist of all of us. And with this, I would like to have a conclusion with two artists that I found that also use surrealism, that to say that surrealism is not dead. We can also see surrealism nowadays in artists. For example, I found surrealists nowadays with artists on Instagram that we can find also in any other social media that still created this precious art with daily images and also the real and irreal life. And that will be all for my part. These are my references, and thanks for watching and listening to my video.